Yeah, you're right. We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the reading of the board member oath of office. I've got it right here on the phone. I do swear or affirm that I was a member of the Board of Elections, duly attend all ensuing primaries and elections during the continuance thereof, that I will, to the best of my ability, prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse in carrying on the same, that I will make a true and perfect return of such primaries and elections, and that I will at all times truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties in accordance with Georgia laws to the best of my judgment and ability. So the next item is to adopt the agenda, and I believe we need to amend the agenda. I think we need to have the executive session bumped up so that the personnel involved with that are able to do that and then go do other things that they need to do. Do we have a motion to do that?
So moved.
All right, that's a motion by Mr. Napper and a second by Ms. Ambro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Napper?
Aye.
Right, so it's unanimous. And then also I'd like to suggest, in light of an email that we got just a while ago, earlier today, that we add an item to the agenda after the executive session. And it would be under, I guess it would be after the public comment as well. But it would be in response to an email we received from a candidate for the Georgia Supreme Court. And they have requested that we do a recount of all absentee ballots and provisional ballots in Clarke County. So that's something we need to discuss and make a decision about. And I would put that again after the public comment section before reconciliation of the provisional ballots. Is there a motion to make that change to the agenda?
Absolutely.
All right, the motion's made by Ms. Fambro. Do we have a second? All right, the second is with Ms. Till.
Got a question.
Sir.
That's a discussion.
There's gonna be a discussion about,
It's not a motion to do that.
yeah, if the motion needs to be made, it'll be made at that time,
Okay.
but it's not at this point in the motion yet. There's no motion been made yet for that, to make a decision on that. So all in favor of making that change to the agenda, raise your hand, say aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous, so that change is also made. So we'll have that here, and then I'm gonna write it down as a request to recount all absentee ballots and provisional ballots. Again, that'll be right before reconciliation of provisional ballots. Okay. So with that, I believe we need a motion to enter into executive session. Right. Do you want to explain why we're going into executive session?
We're to discuss a litigation matter involving the
Okay. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Absolutely.
Mr. made a motion, Mr. Napper seconded it. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. We're going to go into executive session.
You'll be like me.
The only thing discussed during executive session is ongoing litigation.
So just need a motion from the board to allow.
Yeah, the mic.
We're live.
I can use the mic.
No, we're good. We're back in executive open session.
I think so, I think we got it.
Okay.
I hope so.
So I need to go back in. All right, so we're gonna come back from our recess, a very brief recess for executive session. All right, I believe there's a motion to be made.
I make a motion that the chair will sign an affidavit that only things discussed in executive session is ongoing litigation.
Second, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. All right, so we'll do that. The next item on our agenda is public comment, and I think there's only one for this meeting. Yeah. We have one piece of public comment, I believe, right here. Yep. All right, so this is, says Adam Shirley, who served on your vote review panel, has provided you with a compelling report that his panel discovered votes that were not counted by the system software. I served on the vote review panel for Morgan County. We also found the same problem. It's real and it's likely systemic. It is more reasonable to act on the presumption that a review of more ballots will uncover more uncounted votes than to chalk it up to, in quote, industry standard scanner performance. Georgia law requires you to count all the votes as long as voter intent can be determined. There are no exceptions for scanners and software. I listened to your 3-hour meeting yesterday and was impressed with the overall commitment of board members to count all the votes, not just most. I'm confused why you cannot simply continue to count votes. If you found a missing box in a closet, would you count them? Your vote review panel reviewed some ballots and found uncounted votes. Expand the review. It's really that simple. What sense does a recount make when you have not finished counting? If the vote review vote review panel was allowed to adjudicate some ballots, why not others? Tomorrow, when you move forward under the hybrid recount rules discussed yesterday, I would remind you of your fundamental duty to count every vote. Since the rules you're adopting seem to prohibit you from looking at the ballots in the way the vote review panel did, the way that revealed the uncounted votes, I propose another path. Remove all ballots marked with X checks and X marks from the scan stats. Many counties set their scanner sensitivity in a way that rejected these. It is possible. Duplicate them following the method prescribed in the recount rules 183-3-1-15.0-.03. You will then be certain that all votes are counted. Otherwise, this process is a sham, and that is signed Gene Dufort of Madison, Georgia. That is the one public comment that we had submitted via email. Is there anything that was submitted to staff at the board office? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the one we added in light of an email that was sent to us, and I can read that email as well. But it's a request to recount all absentee ballots and provisional ballots. And I'll go ahead and read that email so we're all aware of what was said. Okay, this is titled, and we received this at 11:23 this morning. This is titled Petition and Request for Recount of Paper Ballots in All Precincts for June 9, 2020 election. It's from Beth Beskin. It says, To the chair, members, and superintendent of the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections. I hereby request and petition that the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections recount all absentee and provisional ballots for all precincts for the June 9, 2020 election, and do so prior to the certification of election results. I make this request as both a candidate in that election as well as a Georgia voter. I do so because of concerns that the Dominion scanning software may have failed to detect a significant number of votes in various races. I have that concern after watching online your 3.5-hour meeting yesterday. One subject of discussion was that Mr. Shirley, member of the vote review panel, upon review of approximately 300 ballots during the ballot adjudication process, visually detected 30 to 50 ballots that contained races that were clearly marked, i.e., the voter intent was clearly discernible, yet the scanner had not detected votes in those races. The vote review panel was adjudicating those ballots because of other races flagged with either or both the red or green marks. Yet Mr. Shirley noticed the problem of lack of detection of votes in unflagged races. Because 30 to 50 is clearly a significant portion of 300 ballots, and because we have no reason to believe those 300 ballots do not represent a random sample of absentee ballots, it seems there may be a problem with races voted yet uncounted in 10+% of absentee ballots. For that reason, I respectfully request you recount the absentee and provisional ballots in all precincts. I make this request pursuant to OCGA section 21-2-495A, which I believe grants your board discretion to order a recount of the paper ballots in all precincts on petition by a candidate because an error or discrepancy possibly exists that is not apparent on the face of the returns. I also make this request pursuant to Georgia Rules and Regulation 183-1-15.02, Section 2E, which provides if in reviewing an optical scan ballot marked by hand, a discrepancy is found between the voter's mark on the ballot that clearly and without question indicated the voter's intent and the result tabulated by the ballot scanner, the voter's mark shall control and be counted. Nothing herein shall be deemed to disallow the use of ballot scanners for tabulation of ballots. In other words, upon the vote review panel's review of the flagged ballots which were subject to adjudication, it was determined there were other marks made by voters that clearly and without question indicated how they intended to vote in races that were not counted. I believe your review of all the absentee and provisional ballots, i.e. all the paper ballots, would indicate the scope, if any, of the races voted but not counted by Athens-Clarke County voters and would allow those voters to be counted as required by law. I appreciate your consideration of this most important matter. Sincerely, Beth Beskin, candidate for Supreme Court of Georgia. So that's the email that we received this morning about an hour and a half actually for this meeting, which is why we need to amend the agenda to discuss this. So is there any discussion, any questions?
I would ask Georgia Sosby, what does Georgia Code say about this? And what does Dominion say about it? I mean, because in all due respect to what's been said by these comments, I would respect what somebody that works for Dominion tells me. I mean, some of these comments made, I don't know the expertise that these people have in this area where I would trust what someone from Dominion tells me. And you know the law, and what you tell me, I take as truth. You know, these people may quote law, perhaps they know law, but I don't know them, but I know you.
So it really is the decision of the board, what you choose to recount. So 21-2495 talks about the recount process. And it states that you can choose to count or recount a race or a number of precincts. And again, it's whatever the board decides. So The only thing that it does say is if there is a reason to do a recount, that there might have been some ballots left somewhere that didn't get added in, then you would add those to the recount and hope for the results, come up the way they were with the unofficial results. You do hope that when you do a recount. But there's been times that it didn't, and if it doesn't, then that's when you start adding the rest of the ballots to get a result for the entire recount. So there's a starting process that the board can do, where you start with what you all agreed to do, which is a portion of the precincts. And then if we see there's a difference there, then you go ahead and recount the rest of the ballots. And that's what we did in our 2018 recount. We started with the precincts that were named to be recounted by the community. And then when we saw there was a difference in the results from what was done on the unofficial results in the recount, we had to do the recount of the rest of the ballots. So, and basically that's what it says in the code section, 495. So it's whatever the board decides. I just said that I just don't feel that a recount is going to give us the answer when we're looking at a program. We're looking at the way the system is set up to count.
What you're saying is the machine's going to find the same ballots marked and the same ballots not marked.
That's what we hope to prove, yes. And, what I was told by Dominion is if within the bubble, there is 12% identification that this says that the voter intended to mark this bubble, then it's thrown into a section for adjudication, and that's what the voter recount did. And they did not just adjudicate that one particular section that was highlighted on the ballot, they adjudicated the entire ballot. So that meant if somebody did check marks in their whole ballot, it went ahead and circled in every office that had a check mark. That's just how the program's written, that it would capture 12%. There's nothing that we can tell the system to do anything less than 12%. We can't do that. But the system is set up to separate those ballots that have a clear indication that 12% of the vote and less than 12% of the vote was not colored. Or 12 to 35%. If it's less than 12%, it was considered a no vote. And that's the way it was explained to me through Dominion.
Okay, so if this stack is 12% or less, and they are the no votes, is there something in the code that tells us that we can go back and now consider these as votes when the machine has told us that they're no votes?
There really isn't.
So how is that decided that now we manually go back and we change what the machine has decided?
That's the adjudication process.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the adjudication
Would you
process.
say the question again? I'm sorry.
Okay, if we run ballots through the machine, we are mandated by Secretary of State to use the machine. Okay, so this stack, the machine has scanned them and it has less than 12%. This stack has more than 12%. So it's rejected these, they've gone through adjudication. So do we have the authority under the code to go back and say, well, I think that these should count? Just like we would do with provisional ballots, we're going to have to make a decision on why we reject or why we accept. So do we have the authority through the code book to now go back and say, well, I think we should, or how do we judge which ones, I think this one will count and that one won't count? I mean,
How do we judge this?
It comes to a point with what are you gonna choose to work with? Are you gonna choose to work with the adjudication process electronically, or are you gonna choose to work with the adjudication process manually?
So we make that decision?
Yes, we can, it can be that way. But that will mean that everybody needs to sit down with the 14,000 ballots, not everybody, but the voter panel and the absentee ballot team would sit down with every ballot, 14,000 ballots, and look at it and go, yeah, this one has all the circles colored in, push that through. This one has all the ovals colored in, push that through. Oh, this one has checks. And we take a ballot and we duplicate it. I duplicated almost 100 ballots, me and the assistant city manager. And it wasn't a fast process. We did 100 ballots the morning of the day after. And so we just have to duplicate every ballot. And that will be done manually.
So it could go.
Sorry, Ms. Member.
When you duplicate that ballot, what do you do with that duplicated ballot?
You scan the duplicated ballot.
Okay, not
You
the
staple
original.
You don't stake
Or
them.
paper clip them together or something, right?
No. We send it to the voter panel. They look at ballot A, which is the original ballot. They compare it to ballot B, which is the duplicate ballot, and they decide, yes, this ballot is marked the same way this ballot is marked, and then they send in the duplicate ballot for count.
And we retained the original as well.
That's the only way you're gonna catch that.
Um,
Clearly, the instruction says to put color in the oval,
right, you, I have a
so we're
question.
going against the instruction.
So we're going against.
Do you mind if I speak and ask a question? Thanks.
I'll just continue her answer.
So the people that would be able to duplicate the ballots in the past, the board has been a part of that? Is that the case here now?
No, because the board chose not to be a part of the duplication team by leaving, so it left us doing it.
No, I mean like this, if we did it again this time, would that be what we? Could the
If
board
y'all wanted to
participate in that?
duplicate the ballots, yes, have at it, because that was not an easy
That's what I mean, because it would
process.
help to have more hands on deck,
Well,
helping with the
you
process.
won't really have more hands on deck. More hands on deck creates error.
Mhm.
So you have to have one person, maybe two people duplicate ballots. And then somebody, the voting panel would judge it.
So how many people would be able to be a part of the process of looking at it, saying that all these bubbles are good or bubbled in? Oh, these are check marks and dots and stuff, put them here for duplication. How many people can be part of that process?
As many people as you want.
Okay,
But the law says that only so many people are supposed to touch the ballot. You keep touching these ballots, they will not be read by the tabulator. I
okay,
can promise you that. It's
Okay.
paper, you put grease on it, you put fingertips on it, you would not get a count off the ballot.
is it a good idea to wear gloves? Like, plastic rubber gloves?
I can't tell you if it's a good idea or bad idea.
How many are we talking about?
14,000.
14,000. Closer to 15.
Mhm.
Mr. Rapp?
I didn't know that that was an option to help with that. I just like to make that statement. I did what I was instructed to do that night by the chairman and the staff, but beyond that, I didn't know there were additional opportunities there.
I would say, I would suggest y'all not doing it, because if there's ever a case, you need to let the workers do something. Let the workers, us, because you will be the ones that, if there's a case, you will be the one that will be put before the state election board. So you need to be able to not be in a conflicting situation.
Okay.
Doing the work, and now you have to go be representative of the work.
Let me ask a technical question. Is there a way to measure if the machine is balanced when reading it on 12%? And what I'm saying is, let me make an example. When you have a scale, you have a 5-pound weight that you put on that scale. And if it's anywhere outside of that 5-pound weight, then you adjust the scale. Is there anything in that system that balances? So how in the heck we know?
We can't adjust the 12%.
I'm not asking about adjustment, but every piece of equipment that is supposed to be doing a percentage or something, or supposed to be at a correct weight, has some kind of balance where it tells you, okay, this machine is doing 12%. Nobody's changing anything, just like the example I gave of scales. At most, well, when I left the post office, we had huge scales, because, you know, we running thousands of pounds across stuff. But we also had weights at each scale. And if you put that weight, if you put a 5 or 10 pound weight on that scale, and it said it's weighing in at 11 pounds or it's weighing in at 90 pounds, then you knew to adjust the scale up a pound or back a pound. And then once you did that, you put the weight back on it and it says, okay, that's 10 pounds. It's correct and proper. This system doesn't have anything where you can check to make sure that 12% is 12%.
Talking about calibrating the machine.
Calibrating, yeah, thank you. That's where
This
I'm
is
looking
not,
for.
this is not a machine issue, it's the software that says that you are to have at least 12% in the bubble. This is not the machine, it's the
Yeah,
software,
okay, well,
but
same
you
thing was,
cannot adjust software.
we don't want you
So-
to adjust it, but it should be
But that's what
something
you were
to-
saying, to adjust.
No, okay, so that was in mechanical terms, but since we're talking about, no adjusting, but every system has a fail safe. And this system doesn't have a fail safe. The software doesn't have anything written within it where you can check to see if we're still doing 12%.
So the fail-safe says that anything less than 12% is a no vote. That is the fail-safe. But anything between 12 and 35 goes to adjudication. That's your second fail-safe. And then from 12 to 35 is when the vote review panel comes in and say, yes, this is a vote. It's clear that they want to vote for candidate so-and-so. So there's two fail-safes in it.
I believe that the machines have to go through L&A before use, right? And is there something in that process of L&A that shows that the software is being picked up, or picking a 12% mark, or is there a way to like?
There's some kind of like sample ballot with like 1%, 2%, or.
No. Anytime you test a
Is that what
ballot,
you're saying?
Yes.
anytime you test a ballot to make sure that it reads each candidate for one. So in our test deck, if there's 3 candidates for each office, we take the first ballot, we mark the first candidate of each office, and that's one part of the test deck. The second part of the test deck, you mark the second candidate of each office. The third stack, the third part, you mark the third candidate of each office. On your fourth ballot, you mark every office in that ballot, so you'll know that the system is going to kick out an overvote. Then you send in a blank ballot so that you know the system is going to kick out an undervote, or to alert the voter, hey, you didn't vote for this particular office. So that's what a test deck consists of. It does not consist of if somebody didn't fill in all of the bubble. It doesn't consist of that, or somebody with a check mark.
So an example for myself, I know that I did make a mistake on one of the races. I called the office and I was instructed, I had already filled in the bubble 100% completely. I was instructed to put an X, and then I was instructed to vote for the candidate of which I didn't want to vote for.
Yes.
I was also instructed to initial next to it, but based on the email that I was sent from Adam, one of the vote review panel folks, my understanding is that particular instance, it would have been not counted at all.
That's not right. I duplicated ballots that had that. So the system, because she filled in the portion that you had, kicked that ballot out.
Because there were 2 dots plus an X, and
Yes.
I kind of scribbled my initials because I was
Yes.
concerned when.
I saw several ballots like that. So what I did, when I got ready to duplicate the ballot, it was clear to me that your ballot, you marked the X to say, no, I don't want that person.
Okay.
And so we duplicated the ballot and sent it to the voter review panel to identify, and they judged, like they would with the adjudication process, to say, yes, it is clearly that this voter wants to vote for this office.
I later thought about that particular personal example and perhaps writing yes and no next to it would have been more clear than an initial. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to have this conversation, but I think we need to have much clearer instructions provided to our voters when they do make a mistake to maybe eliminate some of these errors.
So we'll let the state, this,
Yeah,
all their
right.
instructions
I
are.
guess that's a message you could deliver on our behalf to them. I don't know, because it's, I know that other states provide a very clear example. There's even YouTube videos from other
And I would say that that's,
municipalities throughout the county.
I would say
the
that
country, excuse me.
that the instructions should be clear, not just for if you make a mistake, just clear and like, clearly, there was something that happened this time around where people just didn't do what it said to do, right?
I'm
So-
sorry, but that happens every election, Jesse. This is
I know.
not the first election I've seen that happen with.
I understand.
Even before the DREs, and I came from a county that had optical scans, we saw all kinds of things. That's why I've always been against paper ballots, because the electronic, I know it's criticized, but the electronic does not allow you, number one, to overvote, and it's gonna tell you, hey, you didn't vote for this office, and it lets you review it, and it's not gonna let you go wrong. To me, it's more voter friendly. I mean, I'm not trying to advocate for any particular system, but I have seen what paper ballots is, and right now, the discussion that we're having about paper ballots is what the citizens are asking for, and this is what we're gonna end up having. And in the recap, again, as I said, every time that ballot is touched, even through the adjudication process, we are manipulating the votes because of the fingerprints that we put on there. Is the system going to read it because so much oil is on it now, from our fingers and touching it and dirtiness and all that? Is it going to read it? But what we can clearly make determination of is if we have 15,000 names on our number list of voters for absentee, and 15,000 ballots were approved through the system, the votes counted.
Okay, I think that, so I appreciate your insights, and I'm wondering again, going back to things that we can do if the board decides to do the full recount manually, to mitigate any sort of concerns about like something on the hands or something. So I'm thinking about rubber gloves. I think we have quite a supply of rubber gloves because of this whole COVID thing. So if we did do the manual recount, we would instruct our people to use gloves so that we would avoid that smudge possibility and the oil issues. I think that we've already, like, if the software had picked everything up the way it should have, like the way we would have liked, the way our vote review panel would have liked, the way the law says, if a voter makes a mark on a ballot and it's clearly, like their intention is clear, then that shall be cast and counted for that. So if it had done that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But now we're in a situation where it hasn't done that on 30 to 50 out of 300 ballots that were adjudicated, and we don't even know what happened to the other ones. And we've already done or committed to doing a recount for just the 5 precincts that fall within Clarke County School District Board of Education District 2. And part of that reasoning that was expressed was that because that campaign had requested that we do that, right? The email that I saw. Now we have another campaign making a very similar request, except they actually have provided all these reasonings and referred to statutes, saying that like, and they have, like, they're using what our vote review panel found to as reasoning for why we need to do the recount of all the ballots to ensure that we count all votes cast. And this is a person that's on a statewide ballot that would cover the entire county. Also, if we just run them through the machine again, we're not likely to find it. Like, if it's all the same, if you just run them through the machine, same software, I'm not sure that that's going to lead to a different outcome. I'm not sure that's going to satisfy.
Let's make sure we understand that. You've got to follow this procedure that she sent you last night on how you recount the ballots. And that's running through the machine. Otherwise, it'll be a violation of state election law.
I understand.
We don't been through this discussion last night. You're recounting everything you said last night again, which is fine. But I just want to make sure that I'm recounting what I said last night. You're doing that you have to do it in accordance with state election law procedure that she sent you, and which Ms. Baskin references as well.
Right, so
That's important.
let me just be clear, and let's just put this to bed. I'm not trying to do anything that's illegal. I'm not trying to do anything, can I finish, please, sir? I'm not trying to do anything that's illegal. I'm not trying to do anything that's out of, that we don't have authority to do. I'm trying to help us determine what we do have the authority to
We're
do,
talking about, yes,
so that we can do what's best for our voters in our county. And you do everything within our authority to serve our voters in our county. I promise you, I'm not trying to do anything out of, that we don't have authority to do.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought Charlotte said we could either do this automatically, which I assume was by machine, or we can do it manually. So somebody take me back and fill me in on that.
That's the adjudication process that can be done manually.
So, and that's, we would go and do go through the 15 or 40,971 ballots. If all bubbles are done, then we put them over in this stack and they'd be running through the scanner.
that's no,
But if there are checks or dots or anything over here, then that could be duplicated.
you have to rerun them through the thing.
I understand, I'm just saying what you just said a while ago.
So. Say they got no food.
So yes, we would be using the optical scanner either way. One way has people like looking at the bubbles and putting all the ones with all the bubbles over here, all the bubbles still over here, and the ones with check marks and things that can be duplicated
That's not what
over
I
here.
understand the process.
Do you want to correct me if I'm?
No, it's if the machine kicks it
Kicks it
out. So we would go to the system and tell the system to just accept every after ballot. Don't do adjudication. So, because technically what we did is any ballot that needs to be adjudicated, it went to the adjudication software. Okay? And that's when the vote, you kind of sat in front of the computer and looked at the ballots. We're gonna tell the adjudication, we're gonna tell the scanner not to do the adjudication process.
Right.
To kick the ballot out and let us manually do it.
Right. And
So
that's,
that's not saying that we sit down with every ballot, I'm saying that to be facetious. But we would have to sit down with every ballot that's kicked out by the system.
So 2,000 of them.
Because we can't count ballots without going through the tabulator and let the tabulator kick the ballots out that needs to be adjudicated. And then we manually adjudicate ballots.
Do you have a approximate number of manual? I mean, is there a way to ballpark?
It should be the same amount that went into the adjudication software,
which was,
300 ballots.
so that process would just basically,
Give you the same thing that we have, yeah.
Would be good.
assuming that the vote review panel caught everything that wasn't caught by the machine.
You know, and it's important too to note, I spoke to Ms. Sosby this morning about the vote review panel. I know this Mr., what is his name?
Mr. Shirley?
Mr. Shirley's been advertising this stuff. But he had the opportunity there for the vote review panel to bring these issues up.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they could have brought the issues up right during the meeting, but there was all these supposed problems. You know, I'm just saying they could have.
My understanding is that they fixed it.
Well, I don't know. So I'm going back, what I was saying is, we're back to where we were yesterday. You wanted to count ballots yesterday. That's what your pleasure was. So now we've got this email from.
That wasn't my focus.
From you, we got this email. I'm sorry, that's what I understood that you wanted. I apologize, I misunderstood. Well, I would ask, I think the chair, we should ask the director what her recommendation is after receiving these two emails that you read. One email you read and one comment you read.
Okay. And so we can ask Craig Sosby for her recommendation. I'm having a hard time coming up with a reason, like, to be fair, that we've had two candidates request recounts. And one candidate provided a whole body of email of reasons why and referred to statutes, and also to evidence gathered by our vote review panel. And the other just said they're requesting a recount. And we said, your recommendation was, let's do that for this, but now we're getting resistance on this other,
You're not getting resistance on it, but I want to make it clear. I didn't say let's do a recount of District 2 because the candidate requested a recount of District 2. I just mentioned that would be a good way to go. Since you wanted to do a recount, why not recount the ballots that include District 2? We're not doing a recount to let the candidates in District 2 know that, oh, by the way, your vote said this on this day, but now it says this. We're recounting the whole ballot. We're not doing a recount for District 2. I want that to be clear because the law says that if the winner and the loser of an office is, the margin is less than 0.5%, then we can do a recount. So I want that to be known. We're not doing a recount because District 2 requested a recount.
Right.
I just brought those
That was
precincts
my
to,
understanding
Yeah.
yesterday.
that was just my recommendation,
It's
to
just
do
a
those
convenience.
precincts. Now, you don't have to do 1A, 2A, 2B, 2A, 4A. You don't have to do those 5 precincts. You can do 500 precincts.
Yeah.
But my recommendation would be to do the precincts, and then if you see that there's a difference, then we'll do the rest of the ballots. But I don't think going right off that we need to do, I'll sit down tomorrow and ready to do 15,000 ballots, recount the 14,000 ballots. That would not be my recommendation.
So do we need a motion now to proceed?
can I ask,
Oh, excuse me, go ahead, Jim. I was in the middle of asking a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I was just, didn't want to get the motion to be out there. Go ahead, I apologize.
Is it proper now to make a motion that we've had a fair discussion about this, and I'm not trying to take any side either, but we have taken an oath to follow the law. So this to me is the law. This is the law. They know the law. I am ignorant. I trust your 30 years. You know what should do and how to do it. We are a board that can suggest things, but we don't know the law, or maybe some of them do, but I don't. I would like to make a motion that we follow our oath and follow the law and do what you have suggested. That's my motion.
There's a question, Ms. Amber.
I have a question, because as I sit here today, I hear what you're proposing, but this is the real fact of the matter. Ms. Veskins is saying, okay, this is what the law means. And Charlotte and the attorney are saying, this is what it means. So when we get down to splitting hairs, if you look at Ms. Veskins' email, you know, if we make a motion and say we're gonna follow the law according to who?
Well, I'd like a chance to respond
director.
to that, if I might.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with anything Ms. Preston says. You have a right to the board to order recount all the ballots. You have a right to do that. The director is saying she doesn't recommend that course. She's recommending you stay what you voted on last night. Either one of those are in accordance with the law. And you say, well, why might the director make that recommendation? Because I don't know how it's going to take y'all to count 15,000 ballots.
I can tell you,
That's
even
not
even
what-
One too high. Clear this up. And certification
I'm
is
not
required.
averse.
Everybody can't talk.
Yeah,
at
let's-
one time. Everybody got, you
And
talking.
I want to say this, and maybe you won't have to talk.
Well,
I'm not averse.
a lawyer.
But what
So
I'm
as
saying
the
is,
chair, I'm gonna ask that,
Thank you.
that we respect each other's time and speech, and I don't know that Mr. Drake is objecting to Ms. Cambro asking a question about, so if he has a problem with it, he can do it himself.
Well, I just want to, all I want, and I'm just, she can ask whatever she wants. So either way, what Ms. Baskin is saying is legal, and what the director is saying legal. What I was going to say is, she's made this recommendation. And I was saying, and you questioned why she might make that recommendation, why she may not want to count all the ballots. Because counting all the ballots is going to take, I think I just heard approximately 22 hours.
22, yes.
That's a lot of staff, resources, and time. So that's reasonable for her as a director to make the recommendation she's made. You as the board have a right to overrule her in accordance with what Ms. Baskin said. It's legal to do that, request all the votes you can. I want to make sure that's clear. I'm saying that's legal. you gotta do it in accordance with the method that the Secretary of State is giving you to do it. You don't have any choice. But you do have a choice, you can do it differently. You'll probably get election challenge filed against you. So that's all so I'll make it very clear. It's just not about splitting hairs about who's right or wrong. Baskin is not wrong, she cites the provisions, and the rest is not wrong. Nor am I wrong, I say they're both right. I'm saying they're both right, I'm not saying one's right, one's right. So, that's what I want to say.
Okay, so let me get back on point. I am not averse to what you're saying, but what I am saying is, in order for us not to get caught in this catch-22, maybe it should be worded differently. Maybe it shouldn't be said according to, this, OCG 21 or SCB Rule 18. And saying the same thing, but necessarily leaving that out. Because when you begin to put that in there, you know, it's just like the attorney say, we're not saying that she's wrong, or that Charlotte is wrong, or that she's right, or that Charlotte is right. But when we insert that in there, then it brings a lot of confusion. As I said, I am not averse to what you're saying. I could go along with it if it were stated differently.
Thank you. So as I understand it, and from what was just said, if we decide to do it with just the 5 precincts, to start with just the 5 precincts that we've already identified, that would be legal. If we decide to do all of the precincts, that would be legal. Correct? So the notion that we need to follow the law and not the law, and the law says we got to do this way, that with just these 5 precincts that we've already identified is not the case. Like, we're within our legal authority to do it either way. So I think that we should be considering all the requests we've gotten from the public for a recount, for like, and not just a partial, but there's been multiple people that have said that won't do. And also we've got a candidate for statewide elected office who's made this very rational request. I have a question. With that 22-hour length of time, was that opening up all the envelopes and everything?
No, that was from the time we started scanning until we scanned the last ballot.
So to
Pam
start
and I
scanning-
did them all.
Sorry.
Pam and I did them all, 22 hours straight, without stopping.
And then adjudication took up maybe 5 more hours.
I think it's only 6.
So, yeah, 6, 5, yeah.
We still have to have the same group from
Yes.
do adjudication, so we don't have to get that group back.
With you representing us.
Yeah, but I won't be here for 22 hours, I assure you that.
Well, I don't think my staff is there. Yeah, overtime.
I will not do that.
Okay, so now we're facing a decision as a board, where do we do a partial due to considerations of time it's going to take to do the full? And I can tell you that people are going to say, you should do like whatever it takes to make sure that the job is done right and done well. And if we have that much time between now and close of business on Friday, I can tell you that people are going to say, you had the time to do it, why didn't you do it?
Well, I'm gonna say the job was done right.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the job. It doesn't. We pulled something that no other county in the state of Georgia could do. We chose to go home. We were up for 36 hours. And I'm sorry, but I'm offended at how we're being treated
But
by,
You know,
I want y'all to know that there's nothing we could have done that could make this election turn out any different than what it was. It was immaculate. And I'm serious. My staff, me, we hung in here while you guys went home to a nice warm bed with your families. Every single one of us have spent a minute amount of hours with our families since this election started. We have been thrown with rules and regulations by the state election board to process this, implement this. We did it. We put in ballot boxes the day that it was approved by the state election board. No other county could tell you they did that. We processed 14,000 ballots, 19,000 ballots, 5 times more than we have ever done in this county. Yes, we might have made some mistakes. Yes, there might have been somebody who didn't get their absentee ballot. Whatever we did wrong, we will learn from it. But this absentee county has nothing to do with the job. I'm sorry, I've got to say that.
Do you mind, I'm gonna clarify what I said, and then I'm gonna turn it over to you too for your comments.
Sure.
What I said was not a critique of staff. I've said this repeatedly to people throughout our community that our staff has done an excellent job. And I apologize if it was taken as a critique of staff. That's not what I was doing. I'm saying that we are tasked with making sure that if a vote was cast, a vote is counted. And that we've all been put in this situation by the circumstances out of our control, with state level policies and decision making, with COVID-19, with all. So we're all in this together. And this is not me criticizing staff. This is me trying to make sure that we get this right.
Well, let me say, when you say that statement was about tasks of doing things, making sure it's right, making sure it's doing right in accordance with the law.
I understand that.
I mean, that's important distinctions to make, but y'all have held this election, what we have held this Athens-Clarke Board of Elections, and this staff has held this election in accordance with the requirements of the law. That is, you know, you may not like the machines because they don't count the votes correctly, but it's a uniform system voting state. We have to use the machines that are given to this government. But you have held the election in accordance with the law. And that needs to be said.
Thank you for saying that. I don't think anybody here is trying to say that we haven't done that. That's definitely not what I was saying. Go ahead. Actually, I'm going to go to Ms. Fambro and then Ms. Rath.
That's really bad.
Go ahead.
So I'd just like to know, if we were to decide to count all the votes, I understand overtime is an issue, staff is an issue, families, I understand, taking all that into account. What fines or reprimands will we face from the state election board if we do not file on time and certify on time on Friday? What repercussions are there?
I'm not sure if it specifically says it.
Okay, and I asked that, what if we were to do this over the span of a few days, which would put us past, but to do this during normal working hours and not try to do a rush job, because when you get to hour 18, 19, 20, maybe you're very tired, it's hard to see straight, it's hard to make a good judgment. And I commend all of the staff for that, but I mean, I'm willing to risk a fine or something to appeal both, to satisfy everyone
Jen,
in this situation.
I just have to put on the record that the county is not going to say that will be the reason that we end up being fined. So leave the overtime issue off the table. And you just make your decision as a board.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron.
I just want to say to Charlotte and to the staff that y'all did a great job.
Mhm.
Excellent, outstanding. It went off well. And I'll be honest, I was surprised that it went off as well as it did, but I've never worked with you guys before, so I didn't know your record. I didn't know how good you were, but now I do. And I think that at this juncture, we have all been put in almost an impossible situation by rules and regulations that we have no control over. And being able to work within those parameters, it's going to be hard. And by no means is it saying that you guys didn't do your job, and you did your job, and you did a good job. But in reflecting on what the rule is and how we should carry it forward, I'm sitting here today and I'm thinking that whatever we decide here today has to be within the rule of law. Because I have a feeling in my heart that even as we are being broadcast now, there is someone out there that is going to, either way we go, somebody's gonna bring a lawsuit against us, whether it's the state or whether it's the people of the county. And I'm torn because I wanna do what I feel is morally right, but I really took an oath to the Secretary of State, which included the fact that if the rules said this is their interpretation, then I need to go with the interpretation that they're telling me, which is the rule. And I'm very, very, very torn about that. And right now, I don't know, I do know this, you guys did a good job. And nothing I do here is a reflection on the job that y'all do. It's a reflection on what's in my heart or how I feel about the rule and how I feel about the regulation. And I just wanted to put that out.
And I agree with what was just said. I don't think we should be doing anything outside of the law, or outside regulations. And again, I promise you, I've been bragging about, like, on y'all, the staff, and what y'all been doing. And I appreciate all the work that's been done. I think that we've done a good job of working together to get to lead to that result. And clearly, staff has done a lot more of lifting than the board has in making and executing the election, and we are very appreciative of that. Director Sosby, did you have something that you'd like to say?
Yes, 21-2-493K. Portion of the section, the consolidated return shall then be certified by the superintendent in the manner required by this chapter. Such returns shall be certified by the superintendent no later than 5 p.m. on the second Friday following the date on which such election was held, and such returns shall be immediately transmitted to the Secretary of State. Provided, however, that such certification date may be extended by the Secretary of State in his or her discretion, if necessary, to complete a recertification audit as provided in code section 212498. So it says that you shall. Does it go into say anything about history trials or decisions? But Doug may be able to add to that.
I'm not able to, I don't know what the effect might be. Didn't y'all miss it last time? Did y'all get fined in 2018?
No.
So, I mean, that's what they go with.
We had a court order to extend that time, as I recall.
There is a 2010 case though that
We missed the deadline.
Rotten versus Douglas County Board of Elections, 2010. And a 1976 Attorney General opinion by election supervisor, the County Board of Registrars and Elections cannot certify election primary results. So we probably have to see what happened in those cases.
Yeah, so we've been here before in 2018 with the recanvass, and we did miss the deadline because of what took place unexpectedly. There were certain requirements of the recanvass that led us to take longer than we anticipated. And we did miss that deadline, and correct me if I'm wrong, correct me, so that we didn't receive a penalty for that.
No, but we certified the same day. It was just a matter of an hour or something like that.
Right. So I think there's some merit to what Mr. Rappel has said about if it's a 22-hour process, which ideally, I think it would go faster actually with the second time around, we've already done it once. I think that spreading it over a Wednesday, a Thursday, and Friday, that would permit us to meet our close of business 5 p.m. deadline. So I'm open to doing as requested by Ms. Beth Beskins, the candidate. I'm open to doing that. I recognize we're all in a tough situation. I feel like we would be remiss if we did not do everything within our ability to do our very, very best to send up a true and perfect account of what's taking place with the votes that have been expressed by our community members. So I personally am in favor of doing the full recount with the manual component that Director Stovey mentioned earlier within the law, within the regulations. And board members could help with that as much as if possible. I'll be here for the whole thing. So that's where I'm at on this. But we would need a motion to do that, and or an alternative motion.
May I add something to the amount of time that it will take? You need to add in several hours for manual adjudication. Because when we adjudicated on the software, everything's already done for you. It was presented right there in front of you. This is talking about you need probably 2 to 5 minutes per ballot, Charlotte. Probably more like 5 minutes per ballot that you have to do the duplication part, and then probably another 10 minutes or so for the review panel to look at each ballot before it actually goes through the scanner again. So you have to add that time in. You're probably adding another 5 to 6 hours plus on top of it, I would think.
And what hours of the day are you talking about? The runoff that you're trying to plan for us now, for the attention.
Well, as Mr. Raffle mentioned, we could start during normal business hours. And I think that we would have to make a decision to determine, how long it's going to take. As we're doing this, we'll assess the situation as we go and determine when would be a good time to stop doing this, to focus on other things, or to go home and resume the next day. I think that would be a decision that would be made during the process, so we could do our best to meet the deadline.
Does it require your entire staff for this process?
It will not require entire staff. It will require me.
And you need to be working on.
There's open records requests, ballot approvals that's got to be done for the runoff. There's a lot of tasks, starting to plan for the election, getting allotments. So, no, it will not require my whole staff. We've already decided that we'll be working in shifts so that other tasks can be taken care of, and many of them are going to be out, taking time off, so.
I said you still will have to run the ballots through the machine.
Yes. And that won't,
So we more or less gonna get the same result.
you're gonna get the same results.
That's why I think yesterday's decision was good.
Yes.
If it's off by 1 vote, I might change my opinion, but.
And that's my quandary, the fact that it's gonna be the same. I have a real problem with doing the same thing and expecting to get a different result. That's my life sign,
An additional question, have these candidates, these 2 candidates that have requested this, is there a official method in which they could request, or is it simply sending an email to the board asking for it?
That's all.
Because it's not I did look at this particular race, what the difference was. Is this, what if it was like 25-75 and the 25% candidate wants a recount? Well, if you bump it to 27%, it's still, what,
It's the board's decision
it's the board.
It's actually a 0.5% of the code section says.
to be compelled, right? Like, we wouldn't have a choice.
0.5% is automatic.
Yes.
And that's a 0.5%. It used to be 1%, less
We
than
know-
1%.
What was that particular race?
Raise Charlotte.
I know it was 140 votes, but it was like 2 point something percent.
Which one are you talking about right now?
The District 2 school board.
I think the difference
It was greater than half.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
It was several percentage points apart.
I'm kind of, I am come around because I thought maybe we might have gotten by this yesterday, but it would be a place to start, that District 2, if there's any more of anything that's going on with that, that would be a sure determining factor of whether to take it further.
So
I would agree with you.
Say it again.
I would say that that would be a good place to start.
What's
And
that?
If it was District 2,
Mhm.
and if it was something that was really, really off with that, that would be a good place to start, maybe thinking about doing this other thing.
Yeah, and my concern right now is if we do that, and time is of an essence right now, then if we do that, then we're gonna lose time from the process, the larger process, if we decide to do that, after those results, and then time is even gonna be more of an issue, and then we're gonna have the same argument, well, we don't have time to do this.
I have a question. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but, does anyone know how many of the ballots in District 2 were sent in by mail or mail-in?
It was a little over 2,000,
Okay.
maybe 2,200, something like that.
That's a big difference between 15,000 and 2,000.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, oh,
I'm sorry.
Oh, it was in response to something Jesse was saying. Repeat what you just said.
Just that I'm concerned that I'm concerned that if time is an issue now, that if we wait and to make this decision, time will be even more of an issue then.
so what you would do is you would start where you left off. You wouldn't process 1A, 2A, you wouldn't process those 5 precincts again. You would just add 2 districts.
Mhm. And I guess, what would be our threshold for deciding to go and move to the rest? We're gonna have a similar sit down and discussion about this then, right?
That the law doesn't say you can do that. The law says that you're supposed to go ahead and do the process.
Could you clarify?
21, 2, 4, 9, 5.
$490.
No, no, it doesn't.
All right, Miss Tia, I'm gonna tell you like you told me, what you saying over there?
She's talking about,
I know.
Just to this man.
my hemoglobin counts as low. So
So
I
maybe
say,
you need
oh,
to look at the.
It's Thursday,
The dates that I have 19.
which we get probably from that. We do the full. We definitely.
But what time on the schedule?
I want to say 3, but I'll check it right
Well, y'all know I got 3 other lives, right?
now.
I have
My
another life
other,
also.
my other 3 lives are being drastically, ignored.
I was thinking about bringing my pajamas and teddy bear.
There you go. Yeah. I'm
I'm gonna
complaining
give you
though.
my wife's phone number.
There you go.
Tell her what I have.
Again,
You know, right?
Okay.
yeah, I'll call.
I made a bad move this morning.
So,
Oh, Jesus. I told people, y'all have a baby.
I believe the law's changed.
I think it's been rewritten. Yeah.
Wow.
I hope it's tighter than it was. More precise.
It should be colder.
I think it should be colder also.
You're hot?
Back in 60.
Know that if the results are different from the actual count, that you do it.
Are you sick? Man, I would say.
Yes. Obviously. So if the second count is determined that the original count is incorrect, the returns and all papers prepared by
so while we're waiting,
shall be corrected according to the results recertified.
we've had multiple people, including, Mr. John Marsh, has indicated that he thinks a full audit is something that would provide more confidence in our voters, for our voters in our system and our process here. And that's something that he's been advocating for. That was in the email that he sent us, but also we could.
Find that from your, if you got it on the front.
Sure.
Can you
But
find that and read it to us?
this is what I read last
You
time.
read last night, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're going way beyond the recommendation of time, you should have it on that.
I've been having to.
Is there something going on?
I'm trying to
Phone
read
passing around?
the, no, I'm trying to read the, they have it on the model. It's more. I thought one.
Well, this has to do that, sure.
He sent it to you too, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what Mr. Marsh said in his email. To the absentee ballot vote review panel of which I was part, to the agency board of elections. The absentee ballot vote review panel, which I was a part, found a number of ballots had races, no votes, where in fact the voter had indicated a preference. These were on ballots that had been flagged by the system as being questionable. However, these particular races were not flagged. It concerns me that this occurred. However, understanding the system, how the system does what it does, leads me to believe that the election was not materially affected by these issues, and that it's just as likely that the vote was not cast for one side or another, one side as another, and in fact, the machine itself will more consistently apply the criteria to doing things as it will. Number one, there should be an audit of this election to provide answers to these three questions. One, was there a problem with the scanning hardware itself? I believe that we will find that it worked as designed. What were the problems with the absentee ballots that had issues, and was the result of the machine count skewed in one direction or the other? Three, was the overall election even-handed? This requires an audit of all ballots, not just the absentee ballots. This is to provide the public confidence in overall elections process. I believe that the public should have confidence in the election, and that a proper audit will reassure them. So that's where we are there. I can continue reading if you'd like, but that's,
Yes.
But what did he say in the first one?
Yes.
he's saying, he's thinking that a full audit is necessary, like a full review. full-
I thought he said that he thought the process was good.
Yes.
He said, number one, there should be an audit of this election to provide answers to these three questions. One, was there a problem with the scanning hardware itself? I believe that we will find that it worked as designed. Two,
That right there, that's what I'm trying, so
he wants us to do everything we can to increase voter confidence in our election process.
but he
And
just said that he thought that it worked as designed.
he thinks that we should have it shown to our public that it is
Shown, but
via,
he said based on what he did as a vote review panel, that it did.
okay, I'm just reading you what he said.
I know, that's what I'm saying, but that's what you just read.
I
That he
don't
said
know
based
I don't
on
know what
his,
you're saying, but I just read you.
what you just read, you said that based on what he found, it worked as it should have. And I think it's come to a point where our board is trying to prove that a system doesn't work when we're supposed to be giving the election to the public and allowing them to vote. Now, if the system doesn't work, I don't think that's our job to make that determination, that the system doesn't work. When the state said that we're supposed to use this product. So do you feel like that you took the oath to say that we're gonna go against the system that the state selected? You didn't say that.
Neither I nor Mr. Mark have indicated that. What he's saying is we should do everything in our power to,
Show the community that it works,
Samples sets are
right?
too large and expansive will introduce human errors
would you like me to continue reading?
into the audit process.
Ms.
If
Hill?
sample sets too small or improperly directed may not be statistically significant.
Would you like me to continue reading, Ms. Till?
I was reading Mr. Evans.
And if we look at some of the results from the person who's requesting the recount, she's winning by a large margin. We're honoring a recount for somebody who lost. But you're asking us to honor Mrs. Baskin's request for a recount, and she's winning by a large margin. What are we
The
doing?
state election?
Yes, sir.
The state election.
Yes, sir.
She's winning across the entire state of Georgia right now.
Yes, sir. And we're a board getting ready to sit down and talk about spending 22 plus hours to do a recount for somebody that we did the last time. To do a recount for somebody who feels like the votes didn't count, but she's winning by a large margin. And all we're doing is honoring a recount over a race that somebody lost. I don't understand what y'all are doing. I'm sorry.
No. I want to say this, and I'd like to reiterate it when I mention the fact that if we're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever we are, if we make the decision to go with what Charlotte said and obey the law, there are people sitting out there right now who are gonna sue to get this particular thing done.
Yes, I understand. But
And,
they're not still gonna believe it.
yeah,
If we do it, they're still,
you know,
The community doesn't
I'm not
know.
arguing against that. I'm saying that I'm still, if, I wanna err on the side of what the law is. I wanna be in conformity with the law. And some things that, are really so egregious that sometimes you have to go against the law. But as I sit here, I cannot say that I wanna do the same thing expecting a different result.
So,
And I want to, I want it to be right for the citizens of Athens-Clarke County. But if we had some other recourse, if we were allowed to count all the votes manually, I'd be jumping on this table and I'd vote twice, even if the law said that that's something we can't do. But I still gotta go back to, if that machine gonna count again, I don't, and if the software is at 12%, we'll get the same result.
so to your point, thank you, Ms. Canberra. To your point, if we do the manual adjudication portion, that's not what we did last time. And that would be a different thing. And then also, I've been told by, at least one member of the panel that they were very tired, they had fatigue and stuff, like, it's possible they didn't catch all of them, all the ones that were not marked. So if they actually took the time to duplicate the ones that had marks that were not, like they were marked but not caught, and also the marks that were just different, that would be flag for adjudication anyways. If they ended up duplicating those and sending them through, then that could lead to a different result, possibly, within those 300 ballots or however many ballots are separated for adjudication. But also to the claim that Ms. Baskins is winning the race, she's not winning the race.
Yes, she is.
Do you mind if I show you the data here that says that she's not? 47.49% statewide versus 52.51% for Shelby Bethel statewide. This is from the Secretary of State's website. So while she may be winning Clarke County, she's not winning statewide.
okay, so if she's not winning statewide, is Clarke County gonna make it?
I don't know.
All right, so I wanna also say this, I understand that, from day one, since November, we have been, I'm gonna say ostracized. It might not be the right word, but the state chose a system. And I'm willing to go on record. But I'm not.
I'm just gonna tell you not to do that.
But let me tell you, they chose a system that 159 counties has to use. from day one, we have been told, oh, it's not gonna fit. Oh, it's gonna cost the counties this much money. Oh, the electricity's not enough. Oh, the layouts are not good. Oh, we can't approve that system. Oh, let's do paper ballots. Now that the system has been used, it's now, oh, the process is not even counted at all. I can't make you like chocolate. If I give it to you chocolate covered strawberries, you're not gonna, if you don't like chocolate, you're not gonna like it. So I think if we give these, our citizens, our community, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm not saying that. But I wanna know if we do a full recount, are they gonna like chocolate after we do it? No, they're not, because they don't like the system. They don't like the system. And there's nothing we can do to make the community like the system and trust the system. There's nothing we can do. And we do this recount. Are we still going to have the win of our voters? No, we will not, because they will find something else wrong. So do I want to spend 22 plus hours to make you like chocolate? No, I don't. But if you vote for us to do it, I will do it. I will come in here with my happy face on under my mask, and I will do it. But I want you to know there are other tasks that need our attention. And to spend that many hours to convince our people who don't like chocolate to like chocolate.
And when it comes out the same, and they said, well, you still made
And
mistakes.
I'm sorry that I had to put it that way, but it makes sense. It makes sense that the voters do not like the system, but we've got to use it.
Thank you, Ms. Sophie.
So I actually have Mr. Chairman, can I ask another number of questions? So yesterday, Ms. Stowe, we started our phone call. You were in favor of a full recount because you wanted to give the confidence to the voters. But do I understand that you've changed your opinion?
Okay.
And if so, why? If you don't mind me asking.
Listening to the director whom I trust, because if I want somebody's opinion, I'm not going to go to somebody that has no clue about what's going on. I was confused about what the full count was. So when she has patiently educated me on what it is that really makes sense, then I'm convinced that that's really what we need to do. There's no need to redo the whole thing when the machine has done what it was told to do and it's processed how many correctly. These were thrown out because they were not marked properly. I mean, I don't know what the figures are. Okay, we had 100,000 ballots. 75,000 of them went through the machine, they cast their ballot, they did what they were supposed to do, and 25,000 didn't. And when you look at them, well, you know, this one has a flag drawn on it, and this one has my baby's picture on it. It wasn't marked where the machine could read it because it had it at the top. Even if you didn't read it, it had a very simple little illustration up there that we need to, the machine even gave you a curve. All you had to do was fill in that little thing, 12%, just 12%, and we would count your votes. So all of us, the machines, the system, everything has done that we have asked it to do, and now we're saying, that's not good enough. Now we need to count all of them again. We're gonna get the same thing because it's the same system, it's the same software. And people that adjudicated, who went through the whole thing, just go back in time, it's gonna come out the same thing.
The adjudication process, we is still going to kick out the same 35%
I mean, if
that was before.
possibly figures could have been stuck together or.
No,
Each batch was counted when it was put together in this room. So there were 50 papers put together, counted by 2 people that signed that. When Pam and I scanned them, we counted 50 papers, the scanner counted 50 papers. If it was less than that, we noted it because it might have to be taken out to be duplicated. So no papers were stuck together, I promise you that.
I just want to fulfill my oath. I mean, I may not like that I have to drive 25 miles an hour, but I drive 25 miles an hour. I mean, you were on my breath, but, you know, whatever the law says, if the light is yellow, I stop. I don't stop when it's red. You know, I try to be a good citizen in everything that I do. I don't throw paper on the street. So I try to be conscious of, I don't throw paper on the street because I don't want you coming to throw paper in my yard. I don't throw paper in your yard. I try to be respectful. I try to be law abiding. I try to be conscious of what I do, but I'm very calm.
Does that answer your question?
That was a long explanation, but,
Well, I'm thorough when I do something too.
so you changed your opinion based on the advice you were
Yes, legal advice here, legal advice there, yes. I mean, I've looked at stuff in the book and I can kind of understand it, but I don't have a background in law. I've not been in this for 30 years. I've just barely been in it a year, but I take good advice.
So thank you for explaining that. Thank you for the question. Thank you for sharing your chocolate analogy. Respectfully, I disagree with that analogy. I haven't seen a voter in an email send it regarding this issue say, I don't like this system. I've seen voters say, if I cast a vote, I need to know that my vote counted. So this is not about a preference for a system. It's about when a person in Clarke County casts their vote, they need to have confidence. We want them to have confidence that their vote is going to be counted. And what we can do as a board, like if we can do everything we can as a board to help build that confidence, like that can improve, that could potentially increase voter turnout and voter participation. If people become jaded and say it doesn't matter, and I don't trust that, then they might not vote. What we want to do is do everything in our power to reassure people and to show them that they can rely upon this system. And so, and again, I think we should be doing everything within our authority and with that we're capable of doing, as our oath says, everything that is in our power that we have the ability to do, and that includes the full recount with a manual adjudication as described by the legislature. And we do have time to do it before we close the business Friday. It would be a lot of work, but we have the time to do it. That's my position. If again, we need to go ahead and call the question, make motion, or a motion's been made, I believe.
I made a motion and Mr. Neff seconded.
Could you repeat it, please? I'm so sorry. It's been, I'm low on ours.
Basically, what I was saying is I make a motion that with the director has suggested, what the lawyer has suggested, that we talked about last night, unendingly, that we go with the batches. And I think right now we're talking about, that we go through that and see how that turns out. That we take a sample and see what happens.
Yes, sir, no second.
So basically, it's to do what we said last night.
Last
Yes.
night.
Well, I don't even think that. Oh.
I agree with that. There's no other motion. That is the motion.
It's already been voted on and decided. So then, is there a motion to do a full recount with a manual adjudication as requested? Well, the full recount as requested by Ms. Beskins, Beth Beskins, who is not winning statewide, who is a candidate, who is a voter, who laid it out in her email, all the reasons why. And after evidence from our vote email that not every vote that was cast is actually counted by the electronic system. And that, so is there a motion to do a full recount of absentee ballots? And actually she was requesting absentee ballots and provisional ballots in Clarke County. Okay, seeing none. If it turns out tomorrow that there are issues with what we find votes that weren't counted by the machine, like in our adjudicating process, and there's a difference in like what the machine says and what we see in the adjudication process. Will we continue with the remainder of the precincts in our community in Clarke County?
Which
Yeah.
is-
But
It's just talking to the logistics. Would this be specific to a certain race? So where are we looking for the discrepancy? Because we are not doing just District 2 in the entire ballot. So is it going to, because people vote, maybe some people skip certain races or theirs. So where are we looking for the discrepancy in? And I think we need to determine a number, and I'll throw the number I'm thinking out. The other number was, throw that out, but I'm thinking maybe 5 vote discrepancy. I want this number to be very low. This is a difficult decision for me. But I think we still need to follow the law, right? If we make a determination. So I'm throwing 5 out, but I'm asking the question, what race should we look at?
well, in the requests and that I've seen, it's not about one particular race, it's about making sure that the vote was cast, the vote was counted, so it would really be for all races.
Yeah. But
Yes.
Right,
I could make a recommendation.
could you please?
Because Athens is on every one of those ballots, why not put that place?
Okay. Okay, so let's say we do that one. 5 or less difference.
question. If you find out that you cast a vote and it wasn't counted for the person you cast a vote for, are you gonna be happy with the board that decided not to count, like, take that into consideration?
With
If you cast a vote for a candidate that's not in that race, on some other race, are you gonna be happy with your board of elections? If they decided to ignore that, the fact that your ballot wasn't counted, or somebody else's ballot wasn't counted in the race that you voted in, and maybe your ballots in another area of the community that wasn't included in the recount? Are you gonna be satisfied with the board that decided, well, we looked at this one race, we didn't have a certain number, so we're gonna just ignore possible discrepancies or possible issues with all the other races and all the other precincts?
So what are you asking?
And then, sorry, I'm not sure.
It seems like we're artificially narrowing our scope to one race when really what we said last night was we're looking at all the ballot, like the entire ballot. And also a vote is a vote is a vote, right? Like if we find issues with a missing vote or an uncounted vote in any of the races, that's a problem. Not just one particular race.
That is a
Can you
problem.
explain that a little bit more? I think I'm
Actually-
just getting tired.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a 5-minute recess? I think folks-
Yeah, I'm just.
I want to go outside for a minute. Just take a
Yeah.
breath.
Get a fresh air.
Is that all right?
Is that okay?
Yes, let's take.
Okay, we just,
Yeah.
do I need to make a motion? Mr. Garrett, do I need to make a motion? We need a motion.
I move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Is that
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Recess for 5 minutes. We need a motion to come back in. Say it again.
All right, we're back live.
All right, so we're live again, guys. We're back. Do we have a motion to resume our session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion by Mr. Apple, second by Mr. Napper. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's unanimous. I got YouTube right here. This is our meeting. And that's my annoying voice. All right, so, sorry. So, we are still at, and we're getting to the end of this, discussion about this. The request to recount all absentee ballots and provisional ballots. We're at a point where, there has been no motion made to do all of them starting tomorrow, but we're at a point where I believe, if, depending on what we find tomorrow, that would trigger doing the rest of them throughout the community. And I believe Mr. Rappel was asking about numbers, right? Setting a benchmark or something to, threshold. And what I'd ask the board is, and also we were talking about focusing on just one election as for our threshold instead of the entire ballot. And what I was asking, because I'm putting myself in the position of a voter, and I'm thinking, if I cast a ballot in any of these other precincts, any of the races, and it's not counted, I'm not gonna be happy about that. That's not how the democracy should work. So my question is to the board members, is that if they were in that situation, would they be satisfied with a board that made a decision that left the chance for their vote not to be counted? If, because we didn't do the full recount, or because we chose to focus on one specific race instead of doing the entire ballot. And now we can resume discussion of the motion or a motion or whatever. Because I think that, Director Sosby, the law that you've referenced, you said it's been changed possibly about the automatic.
Yes, the part go ahead and process out the rest of the ballots if these results are different. Yeah, but it says now that you just certify the new results.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
So if you do a recount, you would certify the new results, for whichever office you will recount.
Mm-hmm. We would fold those into the official, like we did last time with the recanvass 2018.
But can I mention something too, when we're talking about dates? We have to certify by Friday because the state certifies on Wednesday, on Monday, I believe it's Monday. So if we are delayed to certify, we hold the state up. So.
Also, someone told me earlier today that the Secretary of State can single-handedly decide to extend the deadline if they decide that there's a reason to do that.
Yeah, that's what I read.
So if we're coming up on that, or we could possibly ask the Secretary of State if we need to, if they would be willing to do that, and that would be within their purview to do that.
I guess you could, but I can't imagine them doing it for one. If it's just us, I can't imagine it's doing it for us.
Okay.
But you found Stephen Harmon asking.
Okay. So is there a motion to be made regarding whether or not if we find any uncounted votes tomorrow in these 5 precincts within Board of Education District 2, if we find any of those any vote that's not counted by the machine in our adjudication process or in the recount process, if human eyes and mind identify something that hasn't been counted by the machine, the software, is there a motion that we would continue with the rest of the community to do recanvass?
Yeah, when you start using terms like that, Mr. Chairman, that's what bothers me. Because we need to do the recount in accordance with the law provides. When you start using human mind and eyes, I don't know if that's what the law provides. I just think we need to do the recount in accordance with Georgia code, in Georgia voting regulations. Because when you start doing that, you bring ambiguity to the question, as I said last time. You're only allowed to do what the director will advise you under the code is allowed. That's it. Under the state regulations.
Yeah, I was just
I know, but I'm just saying, we went through this last night, I think that's very dangerous to make motions in that form. That's my recommendation.
Okay. So I guess it would be, if it is discovered by board members, by staff, by vote review panel, by anybody, that the machine while following regulations, while following the system process required by law for recount, for those 5 precincts within the CCSD, Board of Education District 2, if there's a vote that isn't picked up by the system that is recognized by a voter review panel or any other staff or board member, tomorrow during a recount, will that trigger a recount for the rest of the districts, is the question.
The recommendation, what was your recommendation?
To recount, though, to recount, put more emphasis on something that's on all of those ballots. So if we recount precinct 1A, 2A, 1B, 2B, 4A, not all of those ballots in those batches are gonna have the school district on it. But what those ballots will have is baskets. Because every ballot in our Athens-Clarke County had that office on it. So if you want to look at the difference in the batch of ballots to see if that batch of ballots were read properly, I would suggest an office that's on every ballot in that batch, not just a ballot that has District 2 in it.
Makes sense.
Right.
I'm confused right now about why that would make more sense than saying, well, if there's any misvote at all on any ballot at any of those precincts, that should be reason enough for us to go ahead and do a recount for the rest of the precincts.
But how would you determine that?
This is a standard. You can't
You can't.
because not every ballot has that one office on it. So you're saying, look at president on every one of those ballots, look at US Senate on every one of those ballots, look at, is that what you're saying?
So I'm saying the vote review panel identified like things that the system didn't pick up.
So you say vote.
Can I finish, please?
Yes, I like to.
Sure. So the vote review panel picked up on votes that were not counted by the system, that weren't flagged for adjudication. That's the whole issue here is we have a system in place that didn't catch, like the electronic as part of the system did not catch all the votes that were uncounted. We relied upon our vote review panel to do that. And what I'm saying is, if we identify at all in tomorrow's process with one vote that wasn't counted, that's indicative of a possibility that in the 19 other precincts, other votes weren't counted. And that's what I'm saying, that would be reason enough for me to do the recount for the entire Clarke County area. That's what I'm saying.
And is this different from Rocky saying he thinks 5 is a low enough standard? Are you changing the numbers, or is this the same thing, or is it different?
I think the distinction here is, I'm not saying, I don't think we should focus on one race for this metric. I think we should focus on the entire ballot. And I think what should trigger it is if we find an uncounted vote, one uncounted vote, like out
I'm
of,
still confused. I like what the director's saying, because we've got a standard we're looking for. We can't look at everything. So if we're looking at Baskins, and we should see Baskins on all of these, because we know that's a line down the middle. We're looking at for something specific. We don't know about how this stray vote or that stray vote. We're looking for Baskins because that's on all of these, and I think it's a standard that we can put a measure on, and we can see if there's more than 5 votes different there.
Because just to make sure that I'm understanding this right, so this circle would be, say, the precinct, and the District 2 school district may touch that precinct, but not everyone in that, because
Yes.
the boundaries are not the same, commission and school or precinct and water or whatever, so forth.
Right.
And you're making that suggestion because this is
Statewide.
are there any others? Are there some Clarke County I don't remember the balance off the top of my head. Consistent
Yes.
And
Senate, but those are partisan,
But
so
Clarke
the,
County, sheriff? Not sheriff, because that's partisan.
yeah.
It's gonna be your state court judge.
I'm just confused about why we would put weight on those elections, like, and not on, like if I'm in 2A, but other people in other precincts that fall under Clarke County School District Board of Education District 2 don't have, obviously, my ballot, like, identical to me. But there are other people out there that have a race that I have, that people in that District 2 don't have. Like, if there's a flaw in any race, if there's an uncounted vote in any race, that's cause for concern for all people in our community.
It is, but I don't understand how you capture that information.
That's what the vote review panel did.
Well, you say the, you know, it's dollars, that's all it is. You say zero vote review panel says, it's one member of the vote review panel says.
That's not true.
Well, that's what I understood from what you read, but
No, I've spoken to 4 of the 5 members, and they all corroborated what he said.
I want to say that the vote review panel did its job in court.
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying they found things I'm glad we have a vote review panel. I'm glad they did their job according to the law. They found things.
And also,
They
that's still
found
not
things-
gonna make a difference. The machine is still gonna kick out the 35%
The 12
for the vote review panel to look at.
to 35 range.
Yes.
I understand. What I'm saying is, if there is something tomorrow that is caught again by the vote review panel, that like they did before, clearly there's an issue here, or we wouldn't need to be talking about this. A member of our vote review panel waved a big flag and said, "Hey, y'all, this happened, and we this is a problem." Now, and we are trying to figure out what to do with this. And I'm saying that we shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves into one race. That's assuming that if basically that's implying that if any other race, any other vote in any other races, if that's uncounted, then that doesn't matter. And I'm saying it does matter. Again, if I'm a voter, I don't care what I'm voting for. If you don't count my vote, I'm not happy with you, because that's not how this should work.
Would you say, we compromise and say 3?
Yeah, I go to 2. I don't know, I'll go down.
Okay,
1 even, I don't know, I was just trying to be reasonable, put a number out there. Because there's statistical, I mean, I'm not a statistic person, but isn't there like statistical error? Is there?
Everything.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
It's not
this is
our-
not my area of expertise, so. I don't know, I don't really have the answer.
well, it's important for you, the board election, to be aware that there is a procedure.
Right.
That if a candidate feels like they lost an election because area vote was counted, they can file a challenge that.
Right.
You understand that? That's a right, after the vote is certified, they can compel you to recount the vote. If it's within the correct margin of error.
And then
Because
that
if it's
was,
outside that margin of error, they're not even gonna make the case.
that's right,
That's
that's
the
up to the
election law.
candidate.
Yeah, I
To do.
keep telling you, they watch it right now.
Okay, thank you.
So I understand that there is a process for challenging it after elections are certified. We also have a legal process, legal authorization to do what we're doing right now, which is make a decision as a board on how to proceed and do a recount prior to certification. And again, based on what our oath says, we should be doing everything within our ability to ensure that we're sending up a true and perfect account of what's taking place here today. I personally, again, take that very seriously, and I want to do everything that we have and within our authority under the law to do to ensure that we are sending up data for our elections for voters in Clarke County that reflects as much as possible what actually took place and what our voters wanted to have when they came and voted. That's where I'm at with this.
That's where we are also. You're one person and we are 1/5 of the board. We voted and we need to move on.
So are you asking to go back to a full recount again? Is that what you're asking?
I think the
for?
board has already decided that we'd start with the sample. My question is, what happens after the sample? Like, what is going to trigger the rest of it? And earlier it was said that the law automatically triggers it if anything's found. Well, but that's not the case because that's after
What you
certification.
can do is have another emergency meeting on Thursday morning, maybe I'll make this.
Right, but I guess the point is, we're talking about how time is of the essence.
Whatever you get done.
Like, time is of the essence is what we keep hearing, and we don't have enough time, I don't wanna run out of time to do what we need to do. So, and we're already here, so why not just make a decision now? If there's anything that is found within these 5 precincts, then we will conduct recount for the remaining 19 precincts.
Well, it sounds to me from what I've heard from numerous people that we don't have that information right now. And I think we're trying to be reasonable and just get over this hurdle. And then when we get over this hurdle, if it's our problem, we have an emergency meeting and we decide what to do then. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to close the discussion on this, move on?
I second it.
Motion and second has been made. All in favor of closing discussion and moving forward from beyond this issue?
Aye.
And all opposed? And I'm a no vote.
Okay.
Motion carries. Our next item is reconciliation of provisional ballots. And Director Sophie, I'll turn it over to you.
And so you all have a recap, and I would need to say that this is not something that should be published to anybody. Because by law, only the voter that voted provisional is supposed to have this information.
So this
So please, yes, please don't put this on an email and
We
send
need
it
to
to
leave these here.
that would be good.
We need to leave these
Yes.
here.
and they'll be shredded or destroyed.
Yeah, they'll be where we need to.
Okay, so we had, yes,
Are you going to discuss the details of these things? So we need to-
no, this fine, I'm gonna do them by numbers, not by names.
So we're not to mention the names.
Right.
Okay.
So I have 41 provisional ballots and that were cast here in Athens-Clarke County. And we went through and did research on every voter. And the list that you have there indicates the ones that we recommend for rejection. And I didn't do this to your copy because it just hit me a while ago the way we should do it. So I went down and I numbered every single one numerically. So the first voter is 1, the second voter is 2, the third voter is 3, which you see has a rejection. So I'll refer to them as numbers. So this first voter, voter number 3,
Hold on a moment, I'm just numbering.
okay, all right.
Did you restart on the next page, or did you continue with what you had?
I kept going through 41.
Could you just list the precinct too with the number, just to make sure the counting isn't off?
Yes.
At 25 on the first page.
Yes.
Yeah, 41 and all.
I did every other one, that's why I finished so quickly.
You know, numbers.
Well, I just started the pod and.
You just.
Okay.
All right, we ready? Okay, so the first voter that you have that we have for rejection voted at 5B,
So voter number 3.
voter number 3, yes, number 3.
Bravo.
Voted at 5B, and we found that the voter was registered, but registered in another county. So what we do with this one is we send a letter to say that the ballot was rejected and to inform them that we show they're registered in Fulton County. And if this information is not true, then a registration form is provided so that they can update their voter registration. So my recommendation is to not accept this ballot because they're not registered in.
Is it because they have not changed their license or their car tag or something?
Just change the registration at all, and then, of course, we know that through DDS, it is an opt-out process, so everybody that goes to get their driver's license or renew the driver's license is automatically registered by the address that they're given when they they renew their driver's license, so yes. Either this person went and updated their address or renewed their license and used their parents' address.
So they live here, but they don't actually not registered.
So we'll send them a, registration form, so.
Is this Fulton address, or do you have a part?
We have an Athens-Clarke County address for this particular voter.
How do we get that?
They filled it out with their voter certificate when they voted.
Oh, okay.
So that is information on that voter. And I would say, looking at the voter history, they've never been registered in Athens-Clarke County. They've always been registered. Voter number 5 is a voter who went to precinct 8A. And we were not able to find any voter information in the database. And there was no voter certificate provided, but there was no information available on this particular voter. So a letter would be sent and a voter registration form to the address. Well, we didn't have any address information.
So there's no way to contact them?
Right.
Otherwise, there would have been effort made to contact.
So how would they fill out the provisional without providing?
It's very possible that this registration form could be in some other supplies that we haven't unpacked yet. Hopefully,
In there?
hopefully,
Did
yes,
you say registration form?
yes. So there's a buff color registration form that a provisional voter is given when they vote provisional.
Okay, you don't mean voter registration like the normal form. You mean specific when they're voting?
Yeah, this is the provisional voter registration form. It's a buff color form. Not like the white forms that people like registration, but we use that as voter registration.
So we have it somewhere.
Yes.
We're just not sure where.
It'll be in one of the suitcases.
We're gonna have to-
AA,
Yeah, we'll have to
that's
look
where they
through the
go in at,
supplies.
AA percent, probably in that suitcase.
Okay, but they're not registered. And they're not registered.
Okay. And here just shows that we have only 40, not 41. That particular voter is on here twice, so there is some information in here. Yeah, here it is.
A voter?
Yeah, so, yes, so,
Where he is, whatever number we got in front.
as.
The very last one.
He's 41. So I do have a form, I'm sorry. Yeah, she just brought it to my attention. So there was 2 forms filled out for this voter, and there was no record on the database. We have his voter registration form, so we will be sent information, and it's in Athens-Clarke.
Do we use the they and them pronouns for these folks? Keep it more anonymous.
What was that, I'm sorry?
Do we use the they and them instead of he or she for these folks?
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, number 6.
Our
Voter, voter shows up at 8C and found registered in Newton County. And it appears the voter has never been registered in Clarke County. So we will send a registration form to this voter as well. The next one is voter number 7. This voter voted at 5B. And we did our research and found the voter to be registered in Gwinnett County and has always been in Gwinnett County. So a voter registration form will be sent to this voter. The next voter voted at 7A and was found registered in Madison County. And we will send information to this voter as well, so that a form can be filled out for registration, because there was no form attached to that. Okay. Voter number 11. This voter was not found in the system at all. not found registered in another precinct or another county. So our recommendation is to reject this ballot as well.
Good question. I see a lot of out of precincts and in county and in precinct as the ones that you recommend approval for. I'm curious about how a person could be in the county and the precinct they're supposed to be at, but they don't actually, they show up in the system to get the, like do the, you know what I mean? Like why do they get a provisional?
Yeah, so I know for one that there was one that I inquired about that required that the name was changed. So it could be that the poll worker was not aware that there was a name change. Probably scanned the driver's license and the driver's license didn't populate a name and then entered the name in the system and it didn't come. So we get to research it, we can look it up by driver's license and social security number and identify the last name wasn't Jones, it was Smith. So we're able to count it because they were in the line. Sometimes it's just a situation with, just having that extra patience to go a little further. Sometimes you don't have that, poll workers don't have that, to look a little further to see why the name is not on the list.
Do they not have access to the same information off and stuff?
Not social security number, driver's license number.
Because it's only the data that's on the poll pad.
Name and address, date of birth. So we get to have that 72-hour period to do our research, get their ballots counted through this process. Okay, number 21. Voter showed up at 7B, and we found that this voter is registered in Fulton County. I'm just looking through some of the history. As it showed this voter has, yes, we showed this voter has been registered in Clarke County previously in 2018, and since then has transferred to Fulton County. So this ballot is recommended to be rejected as well. Voter number 22. Have a voter here that showed up at precinct 7B and is now registered to vote in Clarke County. We sent a registration form and update the system. Well, they filled out a registration form, so we will let them know that the ballot is rejected and that where their new precinct will be once this system is updated. And these voters will vote in these new voting precincts for the November election, not the primary runoff on August 11th.
Oh, because you had to have voted last week. So.
I had to be registered by May 11th. Yes. All right, ballot voter number 24. I have a voter here that registered, that voted at 7B and is registered in Fulton County, currently registered in Fulton County. Number 25, and a voter who voted at 7B, provisional, and is registered in Barrow County. Registration in Clarke previously. Number 26 is a voter who was, or chose that was at 7B, and because the name was not on the list, voted provisional, and we found that the voter was registered in Catoosa County. Number 27, is a voter who voted at 1B, provisional, we show was registered in Gwinnett County. Then we go to voter number 31. This voter does not appear to be registered in the database, but voted at C. And upon registration of an account will be a Clarke County voter. That's the form that was filled out. Number 48, no, I'm sorry, that's a 4B. Number 34. Come on, eyes. This voter, voted provisional at precinct 4B, and we show that the voter is currently registered in Forsyth County. And will be updated after the cutoff. Next voter, voter number 35, voted at 4B, and was shown registered in DeKalb County. We'll update after the cutoff date.
When is that again?
Will we update it?
Yeah.
Whatever the state tells us that we can. So it has to be, once voter credits get given to all of the voters in the state, and it's after the runoff, it'll be after the runoff. So it'll be sometime in September, early September.
Thank you.
Okay, voter number 37. This voter is not registered in Georgia. We didn't find this voter in the database at all. And application was filled, registration application was filled out, so we will update that voter after the registration comes. The next voter, voter number 39, is not registered in Athens-Clarke County, but is registered in my hometown, Howell County. Let's see what their address is. We will get that updated after the election, after the deadline is released. And then our last voter, voter number 40. We show this voter, voted at 4A provisional, and has been registered in Marion County since 2018. Yeah. And we have a registration to update that.
Should we draw a line through voter number 41?
Yes, ma'am. And then for the other provisional voters, as you can see, they either voted out precinct and chose to vote a provisional ballot. They were the wrong precinct. Every time I talked with a poll worker over the phone and we found that the voter should vote in the precinct, I urged them to go to the correct precinct, because when you have district-specific ballots, you want your voters to be privileged to vote at their district. But when a voter is just determined, no, I'm not gonna drive, over there, wherever the location is, you offer them a provisional ballot. That's really all we can do, but we try to go as close as possible to what their district ballot would look like. A lot of times we can't, because all of the precincts don't have an abundance of ballots of other districts. They only have ballots that are specifically to their precinct. I want to commend our poll workers for going through the process with this, because I was very pleased with how they've done their paperwork and made sure every voter was able to vote who wanted to vote. So if they didn't have their names on the list, they provided the provisional ballot for them, as the law requires us to do from the Help America Vote. So I want to just say that. And my recommendation is of the 41 ballots that you approve, 41, that you approve 22, yes.
Is there a copy that we're all gonna sign up there?
If you could,
I wrote all of them out.
you got another one of those copies that we can sign that doesn't have line on it?
I just wrote 40 total at the top. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I can write that out. Thank you. All right.
Go ahead. Thank you. 40 total, 22, 18, Is it okay? It's in pink, and I'm gonna write, can I write the 18 down for rejected? Is that all right?
That's fine.
I'm using blue, it's on last name, so we're just think of it.
Well, y'all got our colors.
I like that. That's a good color.
I like purple.
Yes. Oh,
All right.
Seriously, like purple.
Oh, yeah.
I like to write.
That's not fair, that. My father-in-law likes that color too.
And I know, yes.
I know you like
He's a
purple.
smart man.
I know you like purple.
Absolutely.
You know that my father-in-law and he are actually fraternity brothers?
Oh, really? Wow.
Where are you now?
That's your sister.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter is also. Yeah. Mhm.
I know some of your sorority sisters here in town too.
My aunt.
Linda Lloyd.
Is that his name?
Yeah,
That's
that's
already
already.
The Delta.
So you don't see any hall, in Green County.
Well, so it's
Yeah.
two different taxes.
Uh-huh.
And so we
You make it a
Yes.
profile.
You know, that.
I'm sure it's around one.
She's a teacher.
I know, yeah, that's fine.
What's happening with that?
That's it.
Thank you. Yes.
And then I guess, so we're finished with that portion completely now? All right. Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second has been made, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so I got this.